When you take Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and you watch them back to back together like one long movie, there's some really interesting themes to dig deep into, and it's super awesome. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, because I'm excited to see War for the Planet of the Apes. So I went back to watch Rise and Dawn together in one sitting at the same time so I could do this video. If you want to do something like that yourself, if you could check out the links in my description, those are my Amazon associate links, and right there is a great way to catch up on these movies as well as support Durbania, and I would be super grateful if you'd like to check that out. But it was very interesting to watch Rise and Dawn back to back because they're so well constructed and so well written. I mean, even though they had two different directors, it still felt like when I was watching them back to back, it was like watching one solid movie with this amazing theme that reminded me of this one verse. God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And I just felt like I saw that pictured so clearly, especially watching these two movies back to back. I mean, you go to Rise of the Planet of the Apes, so much is being sown. You go to Dawn, so much of what was sown in the first movie is now being reaped. And it's such an interesting thing. I mean, when you look at the character Koba, he's a very fascinating character. You get to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, he wants to take Caesar's position. I mean, he's the typical power-hungry guy. But what's really interesting is he gets introduced probably the third act of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, like the very last third of the movie. He kind of just pops up there. And what's really interesting about when he pops up in this, so he comes into the lab and they've revised the serum to cure Alzheimer's. They've made it an aerosol gas thing, and so they think they've improved it. And so as they're going to experiment on him, the guy who is the chimp handler, and you know, he's really good with these animals, he actually really loves these animals, so he's laying Koba down, and as he's laying Koba down on the table, he's like, wow, look at this guy. This guy's been through a lot of laughs. Man, he knows the drill. I mean, he said it jokingly, and this is the guy that really likes the chimpanzees. This is the guy that wants to treat them with respect, and I'm sure that he does. But even this, he took very lighthearted that, oh wow, this guy's been through it. But when you look at Koba, when you look at his features, he is covered in scars. He even points to them in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes like, human work, pointing at all of his scars, just showing how the humans have torn him apart, put him back together, how they've treated him with cruelty and abuse, how they've treated him with hatred, how they've caged him. And those are seeds that were sown into his life. And then you have the same thing going on with all the apes that were put in that chimpanzee, well, not really a chimpanzee, it was like all kinds of apes sanctuary, just predominantly chimpanzee. And Caesar ends up getting put there because he was defending his grandpa who was being pushed around by that bully, and so he was court-ordered to be put into this facility. And, you know, he's in this facility, low man on the totem pole, you know, he's being shown he's not the dominant creature, but beyond that, you have Draco freaking Malfoy running this little ape prison here.
Stupid monkey.
You already know bad seed is going to be sown if Draco Malfoy is running your ape prison.
How dare you talk to me? Filthy little mudblood.
Everybody there treats them not just with indignance, but with malice, especially Malfoy, man. He even invites a whole bunch of his friends over to show them all the monkeys and stuff. So he takes his taser, he tases the cages so that all the cages will light up with electricity and rile up all the apes just so he can show off to his friends. It's not a good place. It's not a good environment. Over and over again, as we're going through those scenes, we just hammer what a terrible character Malfoy is. My wife Laura was watching this. She's like, I can't not see Draco Malfoy. He's so mean and cruel in this. But meanness and cruelty is then being sown into these apes. Then he sneaks over to James Franco's house, his father's house, steals the Genesis aerosol can from the fridge because he knew where it was, and, you know, wakes up all the apes, so to speak. And you can't be surprised that when they woke up, when that intelligence dawned on them in a way that it had never dawned on them before, of course they rose up. Of course they rose up in revolution. Of course they rose up in rebellion, because the only thing that they had been taught, the only thing that had been sown into them was malice, hatred, and cruelty. Even Caesar, even though he had a really good home with James Franco and his grandpa and all that stuff, even though he had a great home with that, he began to realize, like, even when he'd go to the redwoods, he had to wear a leash, just like a dog, just like any other pet. Like, he couldn't be treated like a person. He couldn't be treated like a son. Out in public, he had to have on a leash, being treated like a pet, which did kind of give him this identity crisis, where he even asked, who am I? And he's trying to figure out who he is, trying to figure out his place in the world. And that's kind of the first movie, him trying to find his place in the world. And revolution begins because Caesar's tired of being a pet. He's tired of being abused. He's tired of being caged. These other apes, they've had hatred and malice poured into them, and now that's what's coming out. And so they rise up in revolution. Now, it ends happy for the apes. They get their own home and that great redwood forest. Even Caesar and James Franco end it on a good note, like James remembering the good times with James Franco, but knowing he can't ever go back to that life. He's now started a new life, and he has to finish that. You get into the next movie, you get even more what was reaped in the first one sown in this. First, mankind playing with what they shouldn't have been playing with. They were trying to alter the brain, alter its chemistry, trying so hard to improve that. Granted, it was James Franco trying to save his father. It came from a good place and a good motivation to cure Alzheimer's, but he pushed it too far. They experimented with it the wrong way, so they reaped what they sowed, and the simian flu for 10 years wreaked havoc and destroyed all mankind except for the human beings that just happened to be immune to the virus. So there were very few human beings left in the world, but the apes were getting smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. And so during this, more stuff is getting sown. The humans feeling like it's the simian flu. It's these apes' fault that we're all dying out. It's the apes' fault that we've lost the world as we know it, even though it was created by human beings in a lab. I mean, they're sitting there thinking, who else are we gonna blame? But let's go back to Koba, man. You have Koba, and you feel like for 10 years everybody's living peacefully, but you reap what you sow. Hatred, malice, cruelty, prejudice, all of that was put in Koba. It was a seed planted in his heart. And at that right time, the harvest came forward. When human beings presented themselves in their redwood forest for the first time in 2 years or so, when they saw their first sign of human beings in a very, very long time, what was Koba's whole deal? Vengeance. We don't ask questions. We don't try to get along. We go through and we wipe out every single last one of them, period. It's vengeance. All he ever learned was hate, so all he ever knew was hate, so the only way he knew how to react when his environment was challenged was with hate. And so that is exactly what came out of him. That's exactly what he did, to the point that he hated so much. You find out he doesn't care about apes. He doesn't care about apes having better lives. He doesn't care about the apes having a future. What he cares about is not being caged. What he cares about is not being submissive. What he cares about is being dominant. What he cares about is not being the omega. He wants to be the alpha. So he shoots Caesar, lays the gun down, and goes to hide, thus framing human beings so that he could turn the entire tribe against mankind to convince them to go to war. All of that intelligence that he had, all of it, he had the wrong seeds in him. The wrong harvest was coming out. So cruelty, malice, vengeance, that stuff that was poured into him, he was now pouring out. Humans aren't innocent in this. I mean, you have that one dude who, as soon as they come into the redwoods, shoots the apes. This is the dude who's like, well, who else am I gonna blame for the simian flu? Gary Oldman, loved that guy. I felt for him in this movie. Lost his family, his wife, his kids to the simian flu. But, I mean, he had no more logic left in him. He just had these seeds of cruelty planted in him, these seeds of hurt and pain, and that's what came out of him. Him and that other dude, what they wanted, wipe out those apes. We need to get power back to San Francisco. We need to wipe out the apes. We need to take our world back. I mean, they had a plan in place. They would have been living peacefully together, but that's something that when prejudice is planted as a seed and it grows into a harvest, there is no thinking and there is no logic to it. There's only hate and there's only acting on that hate, and that's exactly what created this war between humans and mankind. And you know what? Honestly, it shows you how powerful the seeds that we sow are. But you know, all I've done so far is focused on the negative. All I've done is focused on what's bad. And the bad is powerful. But now I'm going to show something that was incredibly awesome. Something that is far more powerful than all the hate, than all the cruelty, than all the malice. Something that's far more powerful than it all. James Franco brings home baby Caesar. James Franco and his dad raised Caesar. James Franco meets a pretty girl, and she comes into the family and helps raise Caesar. So what happens here? Caesar has a mom and a dad and a grandpa. Caesar has a family. Caesar has a family that they love each other, and they're good to each other. They love him, and they're good to him. So he's experiencing love, he's receiving love, he's having value imparted to him, but he's seeing others value each other. He's seeing others love each other. He's seeing these things. This is what's getting planted in Caesar. And here's how powerful that is. The only reason there could be an uprising is because Caesar was a good leader. He knew how to unite the apes. He knew how to bring them together because he knew what a family was. When they went to the Redwoods, what was his whole blueprint for building an entire society? It was love. It was family. The fact that this entire society existed is because of the seeds of love and family that were planted into Caesar from the beginning. Caesar has a wife and kids because of love. He has tribes, he has friends. You have the orangutan Maurice, and he's teaching the children all of this from a blueprint of a seed that was planted in him of family and of love. So no matter how much we're now in a third movie where it's war for the Planet of the Apes, or no matter how much we watch seeds of prejudice, hate, cruelty, and malice blossom into something horrible and nightmarish for these things, the fact that you have this ape clan shows how much more powerful love is. The fact that we have apes together, strong, is the result of love and family. That is the strongest seed that can be planted. Can you imagine what we could have now if we had that love, we had that sense of family planted and uprooted all those other weeds? How great would that be? See, the thing I know for a fact, evil can never succeed in being as evil as good is good. God is just so ultimately good. And what I find in that relationship with him is, he's set before us life and death, blessings and cursings. And then he says this, therefore, choose life. We have this amazing gift in our lives, and it's that gift of free will. And it's amazing, though, how important it is to sow the right things, both in our imaginations and in our private inner lives, both in just our friendships and everything like that, to sow good things, because our thoughts, our words, our actions have such a tremendous impact for the positive or the negative. And God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows. God says, I've set before you life and death, blessings and cursings, therefore choose life. And I think when you watch these two movies, Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, back to back, it shows you the importance of choosing life, because it shows you the absolute power of love and family, but it also shows you the power of war. But more than anything, it shows you the power of the seeds that we sow, of the examples that we set, of the way that we can impact people from the smallest of ways to the largest of ways. So let's plant those good seeds. And I think that's an awesome picture. What did you think of these two movies? How excited are you for War for the Planet of the Apes? Let me know in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Next to the subscribe button is that bell. Click that bell. That way you're notified the moment I drop new videos. Check out my other spoiler-free reviews, spoiler talks, theological analyses, trailer reactions, ranking videos, so much more. Check it all out here on Durbania. Like and share this video. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbania.